Well, here we are. The long-awaited day. I'm collecting just some notes from friends around the country who are telling me what they're seeing. I did not get an update on how many people are voting in my hometown, the place I grew up. I haven't even been there in 10 years, but in fact, I think it was 10 years this week. 10 years Sunday or yesterday was the anniversary of my last visit there. I got a note from my sister this morning saying that she was very pleased because she and my niece actually went out and voted together. Now, in the year 2000, when Hillary Clinton was first running for U.S. Senate, and that was in New York State, in my little hometown, a dairy town in the very southwestern corner of the state, my sister had one of the few Hillary Clinton signs. A lot has changed over 16 years. My sister was a Trump vote today. I believe my niece was a Trump vote today. These are people who are so ticked off with what they've seen of Democrats, they have simply walked away from that party and likely for good for the rest of their lives, which is not unusual because in that part of New York gets a reputation because people think they hear the name, they think the city. And the city is one tiny geographic spot, but they've got about 8 or 10 million people there. And then there's this huge swath of rivers, mountains, and dairy farms going to the north and the northwest and then just west. And those are all Republicans. So I got an update, but my hometown only has two traffic lights. I don't think it even has two voting booths. And I don't think that they had a huge crowd while they were voting. But the polls open there at 6 o'clock in the morning and then are open until 9 o'clock at night. So they have a very long window for people to vote on Election Day. Then I got a note from my friend Michael, who was dropping me a line from Delaware, and he went to vote this morning before he went to work. And he noticed that the lines were stretching around the firehouse at his polling place, almost a big circle going all the way around it. So there may be a lot of people who are interested in voting who haven't voted in an election in a long time. Will it mean anything before it's all said and done? The standard answer I've been giving everybody the last few days is, I don't know. I've gotten vibes about elections before. I knew George W. Bush was going to beat John Kerry, even though some pollsters were saying in the afternoon of Election Day that Kerry was going to walk away with 311, I think it was 311 electoral votes. And then, of course, he got smoked that night. So I don't know. It really all depends on how many people are going to come out who haven't voted in a long time, who feel motivated by Donald Trump, versus how the Democrats can get out, especially the what's called the minority vote. But that is people who voted for Barack Obama in the past, but who aren't necessarily thrilled with Hillary Clinton. And I think that despite whatever the polls tell you, that could swing this thing because I was watching some of the pollsters last night who were claiming Hillary Clinton could rack up 300 some odd electoral votes. But they were pointing out, they said a shift of a few thousand votes in several states will flip that around to Donald Trump. That's how close this election could be. Speaking of those minority voters, this comes from the Washington Examiner. This is the headline. Last majority white election, minorities to give Democrats White House through 2060. That's according to an unusual survey on the impact of minorities, mostly Latin American, done for Wallet Hub and provided to Secrets. The study used two models. That's Washington Secrets, by the way, written by the columnist Paul Bedard. The study used two models based on population projections and matched to the overwhelming 65% minority turnout for President Obama in 2012 and the underwhelming 50% response for George W. Bush in 2004. Bottom line, in no presidential election, I'll get that out, from 2020 through 2060 do the Republicans win according to these models. The closest the Republicans come is 2020 when the Democratic vote under the 2004 model reaches just 50.48%, so 50.5. But in looking through all of this, I think a couple of flaws that you've got to see. This is all. It just tells you that liberals like to put people in little, in little corners and say, okay, we've got this group over here. They divide everybody up, and then they say, all right, what do you want? All right, we'll give you that from somebody else. And then we'll take and give this group over here something that doesn't necessarily belong to them. And it's just they keep moving the chessboard around, the pieces on the chessboard. But the idea is that somehow that these voting blocs will never change their political allegiances. If Hillary Clinton is elected president and then we have a disastrous economy over the next 4 years, a lot of people who are in various minority groups are going to say, well, wait a minute. Because as you understand, for instance, black voters were always Republican right up until about the New Deal. And then by the time John Kennedy came along, They really moved along and made the switch. Even though Democrats in the South were beating them with clubs, they looked at people like Kennedy and thought that he was the advance man for a new Democrat Party. And in one sense, he was. But then the Democrat Party had George McGovern and even went off in a more ridiculous direction and has been headed that way for 44 years in this country. I'm telling you right now, the notion that somehow 20 years from now, a lot of these people are still going to be Democrats voting for handouts implies that they won't be able to get ahead. Why won't they be able to get ahead? Because of the Democrat Party. Sooner or later, that song it gets a little old, doesn't it? Comes to an end at some point. We used to have Italian and Irish immigrants and Polish immigrants. They would get off boats in this country, and there'd be some ward boss from the Democrat Party signing them up, promising them work and a food basket if they would go vote for his candidates. And so for a couple of generations, most of those immigrants were voting for Democrats. Well, that all broke down eventually once they assimilated into American culture. The key there is assimilated because on the ballot today in California is a measure that would teach children in Spanish. Well, what would happen is schools would be teaching in both languages. So you wouldn't have to assimilate. So then they can hold you down because when you grow up and you can't find a job in English-speaking America, well, then unfortunately you won't be able to get anywhere, and the Democrats will say, hey, I've got some food stamps over here. Yeah, I'm going to go take that from Whitey and give it to you. Vote for me. Isn't that the whole goal of how they're working this system? And the fact that it'll eventually collapse doesn't seem to occur to them. They somehow believe that they are God's gift. Well, they don't believe in God. I'm sorry. That they are somehow a gift to humanity that rose up from the primordial soup, and that this is the end of history. You've got to go along with their viewpoint and understand that this is the way things ought to be. And unfortunately, they're whistling, as I said the other day, past the graveyard, because sooner or later, if you don't have any revenue coming in, you can't just keep printing money and borrowing from China. Telephone number to reach the show this morning is 736-0300. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX and newsradio1310.com. 37. It feels a little chillier than that. It's right now 8:14. And caller, you're up next. You're on the air.
This morning I was watching the 538 website, and he gives Hillary 71% chance of winning.
Who read that?
Who
read it to you? Who read it to you?
Hmm?
Yeah.
Your sister.
I mean, it's in English, right? So who read it to you? Hello? Yes. The 538 website says, I got a cousin over in Duluth, and he says, and then I have an old neighbor who lives in Georgia now, and she says, we won't know until late tonight, folks. So there you go. I was watching Fox and Friends this morning, and they were doing the diner visits. They were in Butler County, Pennsylvania, which is in the Allegheny Mountain Range. Butler County, beautiful place. Still have families scattered through that area and down through those mountains. I haven't been there, gosh, in probably close to 20 years. But Butler County, Pennsylvania, is north of Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's in Allegheny County. Butler's north of there. And Fox and Friends was in a diner. They found all but one person. Of everyone they interviewed, one woman said she was voting. I think it was one woman said she was voting for Hillary. The rest in Pennsylvania and this diner said they were going to be voting for Donald Trump. And Fox and Friends got a similar reaction in Columbus, Ohio, which is home to the University of Ohio, or the Ohio State University, where you have a lot of liberals. Now, we should also keep in mind, though, a diner crowd at 5 o'clock in the morning, these are business owners on their way to work or people who are already getting up early. They're self-reliant, so likely they're going to be Republicans, and the liberals sleep until noon in those cities. In fact, at 5 o'clock, if any are up, they're just coming home from dealing dope on a street corner all night, right? So it could be skewed for that reason, but I'm telling you right now, there are a lot of people out there who may surprise us still before the day is over. You're next. You're on the air with Bill Colley on KLIX.
Well, Donald has worked tirelessly. In fact, some of the things that he has done has never been done before, as far as holding rallies as many a day as he's done for so many consistent days. But we forget about he's got 4 children out there, Eric, Donald Jr., Tiffany, and Ivanka, and they are all very well-spoken. And, if you can't see that there's something there, then you don't want to. But they have been out. They don't follow their father around and prop him up like Hillary's daughter.
But how do a bunch of nice kids end up winning you an election?
Well, because they've been out campaigning too, and I think that they are so well spoken. I think that it's not just him making appearances.
But I like Ted Nugent. He campaigned for Trump yesterday in Michigan. On the other hand, I don't think that just because Ted is going to vote for him, I'm going to go, gee willikers, then I will vote for Donald too. I'm just not sure it works that way.
Well, I believe, but I think the children have an effect. And so, I don't know. I'm just trying to be positive, I guess.
Well, he has a much nicer family than, well, we should leave it there, shouldn't we?
Well, she, the money that she used for her weddings, and she's been living off the foundation money. Sorry, I'm on a bumpy road. well, listen, I mean, I think that we really don't know exactly what the undercurrent is. And again, I'm praying for a Donald Trump win. Thanks.
Did you vote yet?
Well, I'm out of town on work. I leave early and come home late. I'm going to have to slip in there. I'll get home before 8. And so I'll vote before I go home. And my wife's working at the voting precinct and all day. So, I'll vote.
I'm glad to hear that. I thank you much for the call, and be safe out there. We need that vote before the end of the day. I'd be curious to see what people are seeing, because the polls opened here 18 and a half minutes ago, we'll call it, to be exact, just in case liberals out there would like to criticize. Yeah, he said it was 18 and a half minutes, and it was 18 minutes and 43 seconds. You can't trust people who are conservatives. Although that also, I guess, is a presupposition that liberals can actually tell time. But the polls opened at 8 o'clock, so you may be seeing, I wouldn't mind hearing from people what you may be seeing out there as far as, the size of the people, crowds, that is. No, there's a really fat voter in front of me. No, that we don't need that. I mean, the size of the crowd, not the size of the voter that may be obstructing your view this morning. So I'm about half the man I used to be. I'm on my way anyway, so I'm just telling you, I'm doing my best so you can see the actual line ahead of you. In the meantime, we've got a short break coming up. Hey, a lot to talk about this morning. I would like to add, too, as well, that if you see some irregularities, instead of calling me, because I can't go out and arrest anyone, although I'd like to, but if you see any irregularities, there will be people on the local level you could talk to. Your Board of Elections would be a good place to start. We've got more coming up. Steve Millington is going to join us this morning as well from the Twin Falls County Republican Party. Steve actually voted early, as did I. Well, is there anybody out there guessing how we voted? Come on. Wanted to mention, today is Election Day, just in case you didn't know. If you may not have seen it on the TV set, you may not have heard it on the radio, you may not have read about it in the newspapers or online, but yes, indeed, there is an election that's going on today, and we could sit here and talk about the Seahawks and Bills, but I'm still bitter about that, so we'll pass on that today. That awful referee's call there at the tail end of the game. Some of us just think that those guys in stripes should be somewhere locked up, along with some candidates, one in particular. But we'll be getting back to that in a moment. I do want to remind folks, I didn't have to do it the last several days, but I did it over the weekend just to test it out. I wanted to see how my furnace was working, so I kicked it on, let it run for a couple of hours. Not overly heavy, but let it run for a couple of hours. It worked well. But if you've done that and you discover that you have a glitch, or maybe it doesn't come on at all, you've got to call the pros at Ramsey Heating and Electric. And I'm going to tell you right now, they're going to come out, they'll get that job done, and they'll get it done right the first time. Problem-free, cozy winters are found at Ramsey Heating and Electric, 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. You can call them at 678-0459. That's Ramsey Heating and Electric, where they sell warm winters and cool summers. And I think we have a caller with us. Just a caller, here's a warning. Steve Millington's in studio with us as well, so if you give me any grief today, he's going to be coming for you. You're on the air.
Hi, Bill. Hi, Steve. How are you?
Good morning.
Good. Hey, gentlemen, thank you for all the work you're doing, getting the word out about this election and encouraging people to vote. And I wanted to just share a quick story and let you know I voted a week ago in early voting, and I was really excited that I had to wait about a half hour.
Yeah, I had to
there
wait
was a lot of
myself.
people there, and they were voting, which was great.
Well, in Idaho,
the
most
other
of
thing-
those early voters are probably Republicans.
They looked like a good crowd, not deplorables. They looked like a good crowd, so they probably were. But I'd like to encourage everybody today to remember that their vote counts. Get out and vote. Don't listen to the Clinton News Network or MSDNC because they're lying to you. And don't forget about our local elected officials that are running today. Go vote for them, support them. And even if you have a write-in candidate, you can do write-in candidates as well.
You got to vote down ballot. That's true. I mean, a lot of people out there tend to forget that. Just hey, a little coincidence, by the way. Steve Millington is the chairman of the Twin Falls County Republican Party, and we were just talking off air about Christy Zitto, who is probably going to win because there aren't many Democrats up there in Elmore County. So she and Heather, or not Heather, well, Heather Scott will win in Northern Idaho. Christy will win in Elmore, but Megan Blanksma also will win. We're going to have a lot of women in the legislature. But I just got a note from Christy because she must have heard us through some sort of telepathy. She says, "Good morning, Bill." She says, "What a day, history in the making."
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of dynamic occur. This morning on one of the well, I'm sorry, I only watch one television news show, and it's the name of an animal.
Yeah,
Like
it's not wolf, but it's similar.
It's not a wolf,
not
but
coyote,
it's,
but
yeah,
again similar.
I think it's called fox. Anyway, one of the commentators there was saying, regardless of the outcome, we're going to see a paradigm shift in the thinking of people on the street. No longer do the average Joes, Joe the plumbers, no longer do the quote Joe the plumbers unquote think that they have to just sit on the side and keep their mouth shut. They have found a voice, a champion, and the commentator said, I don't think it's going to go away. I think it is a force to be reckoned with, and people are not going to give up on this thing. They're going to stay right after it, right through the election and into the next 2 years. So I thought to myself, we could see some tremendous changes in the way politics works. And that goes for both Democrats and Republicans. I don't know because I don't follow the Democrat side of the equation very well. In fact, I don't hardly follow it at all, just the news articles I pick up. I think there's an awful lot of Bernie Sanders people out there who are still not satisfied with what happened in their races.
And boy, what we've learned the last couple of weeks about how that was all,
rigged
fixed.
from the top down. I mean, that poor Putlicker, he didn't have a chance. They had him crucified before they ever went to trial. And
yet look what he still managed to do.
Exactly. Look what he was able to accomplish. And especially in the areas where he could get out and visit. I don't think those people are going to be completely satisfied, and they may rebel. And on the Republican side, the Washington, the elitists, the big money people, the moderate camp, the quote rhino camp, they're going to be in trouble. And regardless how this thing comes out, there's going to be a big change.
We've got to take a short break in just a few seconds, but we do want to point out Steve's with us until 9 o'clock this morning. Quickly, where are the Republicans gathering tonight?
We're going to be meeting in the Planning and Zoning Conference Room, which is the room that we use for our regular monthly meeting.
At County West.
At County West Building, Planning and Zoning Conference Room, beginning at 8 o'clock.
On the south side of the building.
It's on the southeast corner of the building. And we're going to have some refreshments, got some tables set up. We got two great big televisions set up in there. One's going to be on national news. One's going to be on local news. So, and we're only just a hop, skip, and a jump away from the clerk's office where they will be counting the ballots. So we will probably have a runner going back and forth, keeping us up to date.
Somebody in better condition than I am.
Yeah.
More on the way in just a couple of minutes. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX, the News Radio 1310.com. At 8:30, it's 38.